Welcome, everyone. We're at the Innovation Alley podcast studio here with Josh Simair from Skip the Dishes. Welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me.
So, big news. You know, I guess it was actually over a month ago now. We had this massive announcement. And can you tell us what the heck has happened?
Well, a lot went on.
Yeah.
So we're joining up with Just Eat.
Yeah.
So they've acquired all of our shares, and they're the world's leading food delivery marketplace.
Yeah. Hopefully everyone's heard of them.
Yeah. So they're huge in Europe.
Yeah.
And they're big in Canada as well. So we'll be joining teams with them, and basically there's the deal that there's a $200 million deal, and we also get a lot of funding.
Yeah.
To continue growing and to continue business as usual.
Awesome. So, for the folks who don't know who Skip the Dishes is, which is kind of tough if you pick up any kind of media nowadays, but what is Skip the Dishes? What did you start?
Well, Skip the Dishes is the fastest growing food delivery network of its kind.
Okay.
And we can get into some more details about what we do, what we don't do.
Yeah.
But really, what we're doing is we're building a 3-sided marketplace. So couriers, customers, restaurants.
Yeah.
That we built this whole back-end system to power them.
Yeah.
And what that does, it gets food delivered to people.
Okay. So now food delivery has been around for what seems like ever.
Egyptians use food delivery.
There we go. I did not know that. Hey, there we go. So what's unique about Skip? Like, so the same thing is, like, especially with these monsters in the market, and there's some, like, you know, Just Eat is a monster in the market. Why Skip? What was the differentiator that led them to you?
Well, it's such a big marketplace. So in Canada and US, the math I do, we can get restaurants spend up to $1 trillion.
Oh.
And when we look at it, there's so many different components to how people are eating. And my favorite way to explain it is that people always talk about Edison and their team and what they built was the light bulb. Mm-hmm. And well, that's true. But what people often don't always see is that if there's a light bulb, there's also a socket. There's all this power cabling. There's switches.
Yeah.
There's a grid. There's some voltage, amperage, whatever they're doing over there. And there's contracts with a power plant in New York City when they first started it.
Yeah.
And what that all allowed is for somebody to turn a switch on and on to allow a light to be on and off. And that was the big breakthrough.
Yeah.
But people always focus on the light bulb. So with Skip the Dishes, we focused on the back end. So we focused on all the power plant, all the cabling, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That enables the light bulb or enables food delivery. Okay. So we focus on a whole bunch of back-end automation, back-end decision making, a whole bunch of stuff that happens after orders to work with restaurants, to integrate with them, to make it so restaurants work within the system. And really what the net impact of that is that we have food delivery being enabled for really the first time in low density areas.
So there's the key. So low density market is really what you guys crushed.
Well, yeah. So, the joke we always do is that it's not that we're crushing; it's that we sucked 30 times less than any other alternative, and we were cheaper.
Yeah, yeah.
So we were cheaper and sucked less. There's
Excellent.
one of the VCs I really like is Sarah Tavel at Greylock, and she always said you have to be 10 times better. She's got some great articles on this, but 10 times better and cheaper.
Okay.
And I said, well, Sarah, no, we're 30 times suck less and cheaper. So it's just such a dynamic space with so many different moving parts with food.
Yeah.
And all it needs is like somebody's perception of one extra pickle on a sandwich that somebody gets mad about the order. So
yeah.
We never say we're great or crushing.
So without naming some names, what were some of the wrong business models or wrong approaches that other competitors had over the years?
I love the story of David versus Goliath.
Okay.
Where both of them were really good warriors. Goliath was a big, strong person that could do the sword, and if you try to fight with him with the sword, you'd probably get, at least I would get smoked. I'm not a big guy. But David with a slingshot does really well too.
Yeah.
And if we look in the startup world, there's a lot of money as a weapon approaches where people... Or Uber is a great example where they deployed money to make them a kingmaker, and they did a great job with it because they get to build out these marketplaces and build out network effect and get to be really strong. And not to mention they did a lot of great tech too. They're doing huge things. But a lot of people took an approach of thinking that they can use venture capital as a weapon to win in other spaces too, I think. And I think sometimes people try to compete against a bigger Goliath. So if somebody has a venture capital as a weapon that's bigger than your weapon, I think it's really important to take a differentiated angle on it.
Okay.
And I think a lot of the business models that failed didn't understand payback periods, didn't understand unit economics, and they just assumed that they could have money forever. Whereas, I mean, who knows if even Uber can do that? I mean, they're doing some crazy things, but
the economics around it could change before your model's done, before you're actually executed what you envisioned.
Yeah, sure, exactly.
Awesome.
So
now a lot of folks would say you've won being a startup, right? So you had the idea, you grew it from Saskatchewan, you came to Manitoba, you hired hundreds of people, and you have this quote unquote exit. In your mind, where are you now in your mind? Like, have you won? Are you just getting started? Like, what does the journey to date feel like for you, knowing that you started from nothing?
There's I've never said this expression before. This is a first. This is a first. I've saved it. There was this fishing TV show, and tying back to our prairie roots, like freshwater fishing.
Yep.
And it was Don Lamont, the complete angler. He had a TV show, and his line was the fun's in the catching, not the keeping. And while I'm not necessarily saying the fun is like people should be focused just on the keeping or selling or anything, it's really the whole journey of doing it that I think is where we get to win. I think the really exciting part is that we got to, the winning was that we got to work on stuff that really mattered.
Yeah.
Thousands of couriers got extra income in their spare time. We got thank you notes from restaurants that understood what we're doing and would say things like, hey, we got to keep my son in ballet. And that's the winning. It's not some prize at the end necessarily. I mean, don't get me wrong, money's good and you can do great things with it. But the real win was that we got to do stuff that we were passionate about and stuff that we worked very long, hard hours and worked dedicated and passionately for it. And we got to do stuff that mattered.
Absolutely. That's some good insight. And I can vet, you guys worked nonstop. Like we were literally just, when the first time I think we actually met was on the 5th floor at 321 here. Yeah. And you guys worked nonstop and then slowly moved everyone out of this building.
There's so much support. The community has been amazing to us. So can you imagine where else do people they moved out of the office for us?
That's it. Marshall and the guys got the hell out of the way.
We cleared an entire floor. No, we didn't clear them. I don't even think it was our idea.
Yeah, gracefully stepped aside.
They said, hey, you guys are growing. Do you need us to get out of the way to help you out?
Yeah.
We'll get more space and you guys focus on this. We'll look like... the amount of distractions that cause startups to fail are tremendous.
Yeah.
Or the numbers of them, but they helped eliminate a good chunk of reasons why we wouldn't have continued to succeed.
Yeah. So let's talk about the community for a second. Mm-hmm. So what are the resources in the community that you really, with some hindsight now, really are useful to the startup going through this growth phase? Like, what do you use?
Well, I come to you regularly to cry on your shoulder. Is this when I'm supposed to thank you? Is it? No, there's probably too many to even name right now. On your website, you have most of the household names.
Yeah.
So you have Futurepreneur and MTA, North Forge, different government channels. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the biggest part is. The biggest part I'd say about that is that there's tremendous support from the community, and the way to let people help you is a bigger challenge, I think.
Okay.
Because so many people are around with great intentions that want to help.
Yeah.
And they're tremendous people, and as a startup, we have to know how to allow people to help us. So we have to think about them and what their position is in the whole in the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
And let them help us for the areas that they can, and I mean, not try to overextend help from somebody if that's not their area.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I guess so. Part of that too, I guess, is managing that help. Like sometimes people want to help, but doesn't quite fit.
Yes, that's true.
Excellent. So what's an example? So maybe for a startup going through that first phase, that people are excited about their idea, everyone wants to help. What was that? What was that balancing thought process in your mind about Do I take extra grant money, or do I take funding from here or there, or debt? Like, what was that decision process to keep value, keep things on track from a business execution standpoint?
I think we always thought about making sure we're doing lots of iterations. So in every period, we wanted to always be iterating at least 100 times.
Okay.
Because we knew as long as we're iterating nonstop, we'll get to, at the end of a period, we'll get to a pretty good answer as long as we're being humble and courageous and learning from our mistakes and trying to get in different ways. Yeah. So I think we did a lot of that. So I think it was more so that, of course, we never wanted to, as soon as people start selling shares of a company, it's tough to get those back.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't. So I think on some things you have to be a bit more less iterative on. But overall, yeah, I think it's all a matter of finding out what works for what your priorities are. And for us, it was to iterate and to make decisions, make them fast, even if we messed up. Yeah. It meant decisions were being made, and overall, that was a path that led us towards building something good or great, hopefully.
Awesome. So the I'll call it the entrepreneurial perspective. Now, a lot of folks want to know, how do I fund my startup? So, when you look at the last couple of years and how you went through it, at what point in time did venture capital become real? Like, it made sense and it was something you could get access to? Like, was it overnight, all of a sudden, hey, like, we hit this threshold, venture capital loves us and away we go? Or was it a continual process? What does that relationship with funding look like?
Yeah. And I think overall the relationship with investors is it's one of the most misunderstood things of entrepreneurs, or areas that entrepreneurs face. And I think that our friends in San Francisco, maybe they just get more exposure to investors and what investors do. But the biggest thing that I learned along the way is to think about, just the same way that if we're thinking about how to sell or how to get people to use our products and services, we always have to think about the user, then everything else should follow. I think it's like a Google adage or something.
Yeah.
And same thing with investors. We have to always think about, well, not even yet. Sorry, first of all, we got to think about what the heck we're trying to do. What are we trying to achieve in our hearts too? Like, what do we believe in? What are we trying to do?
The passion, yeah.
Yeah, for Skip, we knew we're going after this huge, incredibly large problem. It's like 150 mid-market cities don't have food delivery, which means that people don't have better ways to use their time whenever they need to use 45 minutes to focus on teaching their son or daughter how to read or something.
Yeah.
And we wanted to get that out there for all them. So we knew that to support that, we need a large business, and to support a large business, we need funding. Then we had to start thinking. So first of all, we knew that we need a large business to do what we're passionate about. Other people, if they want to make a coffee store and just make one, they probably don't need venture capital.
Well, the scalability model is different, yeah.
Yeah, because the market's smaller. But the whole reason is, I just said they probably don't need venture capital. Most people don't understand what that means. And that's probably the biggest part that I think for advice, is that we always have to think about the different users, and everything else should follow. And when people think about venture capital, they have to understand, what is venture capital? Mm-hmm. Like, it's these LPs that are investing in fund managers or funds, and fund managers are putting it out. Then we got to think about how the fund managers are motivated, and how the fund managers need these. They're going for grand slams, for the most part.
Yeah.
For like this typical San Francisco venture capital, and people need to be able to tie their business to what the venture capital, or to the investor rather, mm-hmm. needs to get out of it. So if it's somebody making one coffee shop, obviously if the venture capitalist is first Silicon Valley VC is motivated to get like $1 billion exit, which covers all the losses they make, yeah. and then is how they get paid. And we don't probably have time to go into details on how that works, but it probably isn't. It's not even polite to pitch a VC with a coffee shop.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
one
franchise model ain't going to sell anything. Yeah, exactly.
Well, like, if it's just one coffee store,
yeah.
I mean, it could be a great business.
Yeah.
Could still need investment.
Yeah.
But not venture capital.
So that's an excellent point, because it is, there's that business VC now. A lot of startups have the challenge of, I took friends and family, local money, low risk, very different thought process than the venture capitalists you just talk about.
Yep.
And anyways, like how can one transition that thought process for the business or for governance? Like how did you get around that friction of that original friends and family money? Was that all aligned with that thought process from day one about then how to get to venture, then move on? Like, was it one continuity for you, or were there expectations for different investors to manage and align?
For our part, we bootstrapped for like 3 years, ballpark, before we even took on venture capital. And in doing so, we had a lot more flexibility than I think some people that take on too much. And I mean, we had to make a lot of sacrifices to be able to bootstrap. Like, there were like, I won't show you on the
folding chairs and
yeah, folding chairs. I was gonna say there's like probably holes in my pants. I'm gonna cross my legs here. So there's a lot of sacrifices that most people aren't willing to take on, and maybe rightfully so. There's always this I don't want to ever quote. I'm not trying to be here to quote Steve Jobs, but there's some interview where he said people always talk about passion and how important that is to making something great, and it's so true, because if you're not passionate about something, you'll be smart and quit.
Yeah.
Because there's way easier things to do out there.
Yeah.
And that's so true. So tying it back into the funding and how that all goes, I think it's really important to think about every single investor and what their interests are, and if somebody brought on investors early on that are the wrong risk profile for later on, if you pivot and decide, hey, yeah, we can actually go for this and do something huge,
yeah,
and we need VC, then I mean, at least the venture capitalists I know will probably buy out the shares of the initial investors and give them a healthy return. Yeah. So nothing's ever impossible.
Yeah.
But
well, that's it. That importance. I think it's something that folks will be surprised. That the bootstrap. It was like 3 years of bootstrap. That is
no pay.
Yeah, like that. Again, can you describe that process? Like how cheap was cheap? Like
I don't know who's gonna be listening to like there could be like young children listening. So I don't know.
We don't let them.
We only have like a few minutes left, so yeah, like we were.
Yeah, sorry.
I didn't eat fruit for 3 years. I slept in the closet. We like all of our savings went into it. I can't remember. I lost track of how many times I put payroll on credit card.
Yeah.
We never missed payroll once.
That's amazing.
Never missed payroll once, but I can't like. I always had like multiple. I was doing banking before it, so I had like some credit worthiness before, yeah. and basically, so I had like a lot of room on my credit card. But I'm not trying to tell everyone like, hey, putting money on your credit cards is like balance transfers is the way to go. That's not the recipe.
That's not the model. No.
It's that I understood the cash flows meticulously, and I could see that cash flows were coming. It was just timing of cash.
Yeah.
And I could foot it, but I mean, I did long analyses
instead
on
of
that.
taking bad money, you made sacrifices.
Well, I didn't even have any money to take. I did. We were doing it because it had to be done.
Yeah.
We really believed we were. And I keep saying this word passion, but we just believed it had to be done, and because of that, we wouldn't stop. And should that mean Josh puts a whole bunch of whack of debt on his credit cards? That's really dangerous. Yeah, it wasn't that dangerous because it's something that had to be done.
Yeah.
And I think whenever you talk to these people that build these cool things, there's some kind of perspective like that shows up.
Yep.
So I'd interview you back and talk about how you built your stuff. So
well, that's it.
It'll probably be like a very similar story.
A lot of the same things. You know, and it's funny because the same thing. A lot of folks, when they look at you on the other side of a deal, the other side of a presentation you do, whatever, it's like, wow, you're so successful, and they discount like it's years of sacrifice to get the success, and that takes passion but patience.
Yep.
Right, because it's like there's a lot at every time you were working on something. I assume there's always an option to give up. There was always an option to go somewhere else, to fold it down, like give in, and you didn't. And that's that. There's that I really appreciated seeing that in you and your team. So,
well, it's so important to have support, and we've chatted a bunch of times along the way, and like you'd be outside having your cigar like you do. And I'd go out there and dump a whole bunch of weight on you. And some of it I probably shouldn't have. Some of it was right.
Oh, yeah.
Because some of it, that's exactly what your role could be, to help out other people. And likewise, a lot of different entrepreneurs are coming to me now, and they'll dump a bunch of weight on me, and some of it is not appropriate, some of it is. And a lot of it I can help with.
You filter and you
and I try to tell them that, hey, this is like, you should look at like pitch deck templates for that.
Yep.
I can't do the whole markup and do your pitch deck for you.
Yep.
I can't.
So just one last thought. So, if you look at where where you've been, any sort of final thoughts, final advice for the entrepreneur starting tomorrow? They have this passionate idea. They want to get going. What would you recommend? How should they frame their mind for this idea they're going to partake on?
So someone that's going to do like a fast growth startup.
Yeah, they're starting to scale up tomorrow.
It's a great question. there's like just a log jam just happened in my head. There's like 1,000 things I want to say. It's a really enjoy it, because there's going to be so many ups and downs, euphoria, despair. And even like I always get sidetracked on all these different priorities and all these different goals, and sometimes I forget to enjoy what I'm doing and how exciting it truly is. Whether it's a founder, whether it's employee number 50, whether it's employee 300, to be part of something that's actually building real things is, I don't want to say it's rare, but it's special. It's always special. It's magic.
Yeah.
Because it's like a human brain putting out ideas and getting it done. And yeah, it doesn't mean we have to love all of it. I hate parts of what I do. Despise things like doing forms and stuff. Yeah. Oh, I hate it. I can't do it. But I still have to enjoy it, because I have to understand that what I'm doing is creating value for society and creating value for people, and good, honest people around North America and hopefully the world someday. And
enjoy the ride.
Enjoy the ride is the big one, because it can be a long one. It can feel a lot longer than you're ready for, and who knows what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Josh. It's been a pleasure having you here. Congratulations, and I'm looking really forward to the next whole generation of things you're going to be doing with your team. So
same here. Excited
thanks
for the
coming
community.
here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take
Thanks
care.
a lot. Cheers.